Hi everyone, I am Suhas Mohan, your ACCA tax mentor at Being ACCA, and in this video, we will start discussing with our first question of Section C. But before you check this out, I would request all of you to solve the pre-mock and then come here because this will help you identifying the mistakes you've done and provides a scope for improvement. For Section A and Section B questions, you can check out the tax playlist at Being ACCA's YouTube channel. So in section C, we will have a total of three questions, which can be divided into multiple parts, but the ultimate questions would be three, and one question would be of 10 marks, and the other two would be of 15 marks each. So the other two 15 markers will come from one will definitely be from corporation tax, and the second question will be from the individual's income taxation of an individual. So these can come in any order, but two 15 markers will definitely come from this, and the 10 marker can come from anywhere across the area. It might come from inheritance tax, it might come from VAT. It might not come from VAT, but it can come from inheritance tax, it can come from CGT for individuals, and also sometimes it might ask regarding comparisons between the income tax by an individual and by corporation tax. These are also the most possible questions that you can expect in the 10 marker. So without any delay, let's start off with our first question. Tina currently, so this question has two requirements. We can see Tina currently runs a sole trade business developing beauty products at home. She expects her total income tax liability and national insurance contributions for the tax year 24-25 to be 9,732. Okay, she has mentioned how much will her tax liability be. Tax liability and the NIC together will be 9,732 as a sole trade business. Okay. Tina has been considering incorporating her business and would like to compare the potential tax liability of that to her sole trade business. Okay, and currently she's running as a sole trade, but now she wants to incorporate her business and become. So if she incorporates her big business, that becomes chargeable for corporation tax. Let's highlight this point as well, and would like to compare the potential tax liability of that to her sole trade business. So right now she's having a tax liability of 9732 with NICs, but now if she incorporates her business, she would be liable for corporation tax as well. So now she wants to compare which one would be lower. So let's see, that's what she wants to do. Let's see what is the further information that has been provided. The forecast trading profits of the new limited company would be £50,000 before taking account of any director's remuneration or associated profits. Okay, the profits of the company would be 50,000. But the point is before taking account of the director's remuneration. Tina would be planning to pay herself gross director's remuneration of 30,000. So here the director's remuneration she's considering about herself and dividends of 10,000. Okay. She would want to pay dividends of 10,000. The balance of profits would be retained with the new company. The new company would not qualify for NIC annual employment allowance. Okay. She would not qualify for NIC annual employment allowance. Okay. Now let's see what is the next part of it. Whichever structure is used, Tina would like to start contributing 10,000 into a pension scheme and would like some advice on the tax implications of doing so. She's not sure yet whether to invest into personal pension contribution or occupational scheme. Okay. So she's confused between personal pension scheme or the benefits that would be reaped out of an occupational scheme. So let's help her out with that later. But if they ask us to, let's see the question. Calculate whether there would be an overall savings of tax, that is income tax, corporation tax, employee and employer NICs, if Tina were to set up a new limited company compared with her current sole trade business. Okay, this is our first question. So first, they're asking us if she would have savings or if there is an additional payment that would have been made if she incorporates her business. So first, let's identify. So here we can see we can see that her current liability is 9732. So let's mention that down. Current tax liability as a sole trader of Tina, and the amount would be The amount, it is 9732. You can always copy that down from here. Okay, we have this. Yes, but now let's identify what if she incorporates, what would the taxation be? So we can identify that if she incorporates, the company will have profits of 50,000, and she will be getting, that is Tina will be getting a remuneration of 30,000 and dividends of 10,000. So that means she will have income tax liability based on the income, employment income of 30,000 and the dividend income that she will be getting. So first let's calculate that, then let's calculate the NICs, then let's calculate the corporation tax. Once we calculate all of these, we should compare it with the current tax liability that she has to identify if she'll be paying more or she'll be paying less. So this is a procedure of how we should go about with the question. So let's start with income tax computation. Let's write over here. Always be clear in what you write, guys. Income tax computation of Tina as director of the incorporated business. Okay. So first, what do we have? We have two types of income. That is di director's remuneration, that is employment income, which will be a part of non-savings income, and dividends of 10,000. That means she has a dividend income as well. So we will have two types of income. So first we'll write non-savings income, and dividend income is what she will be having. So identify what is it. First, it will be employment income. She'll have an employment income which will form part of the non-savings income. Let me just put both of these here. Yes. So that means it will be 30,000 here. And there is no mention of any other benefits that are being provided. So it will be at 30,000. And next, she has a dividend income. And that will be part of the dividend income. So this is the total income that she has got. But right now, when we are calculating the taxable income, we should always deduct the personal allowance. Now, how much is a personal allowance? Always check it up. If you are having any bit of doubt, do not hesitate to open the tax tables, because this will be your ultimate guide and your ultimate savior. So let's identify the personal allowance is 12,570. Is there any additions or deletions in this? No, because her income is much below 100,000. So let's consider this less. So let's write less personal allowance. And because first, always the personal allowance is to be deducted from non-savings income, then the priority is given to savings income, and third will be given to the dividend income. So personal allowance should first be deducted of 12,570 from the non-savings income. Since it can be deducted in the entirety from non-savings income, we have to deduct it here, 12,570. So that gives us, and here it will be 0. So that gives our taxable income is equal to this plus this plus this. That will be taxable income is therefore 27,430. So now let's start off with the tax liability would be first on the employment income. On employment income, how much is her employment income? On the non-savings income. Non-savings income would be is equal to 30,000 minus 12,570. And because she's a basic rate taxpayer, income non-savings income would be taxed at 20%. So here it would be into, this is our tax level into 20%. Always present it in this manner, so it will help you guys have a better calculation into this. So we have gotten non-savings income tax liability would be this. Now on dividends, we have something known as dividend nil rate band. So how much is that coming for? We can check that out. Dividend nil rate band is 500. So 500 pounds of the dividend income will be taxed at zero. So we can write dividend nil rate band for 500 at 0. That would give us is equal to 500 into 0. 0. Now for the remaining dividend income, the dividend in tax on dividend income on remaining 9,500 will be at, let's have a look at the tax tables again. So if you can see, the income tax is taxed at 20, 40, and 45, but the dividend income, trust me guys, when I was preparing for my exam, I did not even look at all the things that would be provided in the exam, because you tend to forget things that point of time. So here you can see it is 8.75%. Since Tina is a basic rate taxpayer, it will be taxed at 8.75 only. So into 8.75%. So here is equal to, let's mention that, 9,500 into 8.75 percentage. That will be is equal to into this would give us 831.25. So therefore, total income tax would be is equal to sum of these. So now we have got the income tax would be 4317. But the next thing that we'll have to do is calculate the employee and employer NICs. Since she's getting a remuneration of 30,000, employee NIC will be there, and as well as because employer is paying that, it will be based on the earnings. So we will be taking the NICs as well. So first let's calculate employee class 1 NIC, and class 1 NIC would be based on earnings. How much are the earnings? We have earnings are 30,000. So less we have something in the beginning for the first few amount. We will not have any NIC applicable amount that we can check out here. Yes, if you can see employee class 1 pound to 12,570, there is no NIC contribution that is necessary. And post 12,570 to 50,270, it would be taxed, it would be contributions at 8%. So because it will fall, because it's only 30,000, it will be sufficient with the 8% over here. And employer class 1 would be first 1 to 9,100 at nil, and above 9,100 per year would be at 13.8%. Now let's take a look at it. So 12,570 at 0% and remaining equal to 0. Remaining NIC contributions on NIC contributions on the remaining amount on the remaining earnings is equal to 30,000 minus 12,570 into what is the rate that we saw? The rate that we saw is 8%. So let's calculate with that. Into 8%, that would give us 1394.4. Let's always round it down. We can keep it at 1394. It's not necessary to tack the exact values. So employee class 1 NIC would be 1394. Now coming to employer class 1 NAC, class 1 NIC earnings again would be 30,000, and less 9,100 at 0% is equal to 0. We can keep it 0. And NIC contributions on the remaining amount is equal to, open brackets, 30,000 minus 9,100 into 13.8%. If you feel confused at any point of time, always open. This will come to your rescue. Guys, it's always better to refer and write the right answer rather than not referring and writing the wrong answer. Always keep this in mind, and let's go ahead. So now we have got the NIC class 1, employer class 1 NIC is 2884 and the employee class 1 NIC is 1394.4. Now let's move on to the corporation tax calculation. Corporation tax calculation. Tina has provided that trading profits would be at 50,000 pounds. And she has not taken the remuneration or associated cost into consideration. But remuneration is a deductible expense for taxation purposes in corporation tax. So let's deduct remuneration, less remuneration. It will be 30,000 minus 30,000. All right. After that, less employer class 1 NIC. So employer class 1 NIC is also a deductible expense. Always remember that it can always be deducted. So that would give us deduction of is equal to, always remember, if minus this one. If you mention it this way. Now she is taking a dividends of 10,000. If she's taking dividends of 10,000 for corporation purpose, dividends will not be deducted from the trading profits. Always, this is a point that we should remember. So this will be the total. This is all that we'll have to take into consideration. Now, taxable total profits that we get are profits is equal to sum. This always for additions, use the formula sum, open brackets and select it down until the costs are being used. So this is the taxable total profits. Now, since corporation tax has something known as upper limits, lower limits, and all of those, it's always better to check it out at what rate she will be taxed. The corporation tax will be charged on Tina's new limited company that she plans to form. Yes. So here we can see small profit rate is 19% for the year and main rate is 25%. When is main rate applicable? When the limit is between 50,000 and 250,000. But since the profit is coming to 17,000, it will be part of the small profits rate and it will be taxed at 19%. So corporation tax at 19% of TTP is equal to into 19% will give your answer of 3252. Now, these are all the payments that she has to make. Have we done everything? We calculated income tax, yes. Corporation tax, yes. Employee and employer NICs, yes. There will not be any class 1A NIC because there are no benefits that are being provided. So it's only employee class 1 and employer class 1 that will be taken into consideration. Now, let's see how much is the total amount that she's paying. Total tax and NIC payments made by Tina if she incorporates her business. If she incorporates her business, that would be is equal to, we should take the corporation tax, yes, plus we should take the employer NIC contribution, yes. We should take the employee class 1 NIC contribution, yes, plus the income tax that she would be liable to for her dividend income and her employment income. So this is the total income tax that she would pay. Calculate this. So this is the total amount that she's paying if she incorporates the business. But normally she's only paying 9732, which means she's paying an additional tax paid is equal to 11,847 minus 9732. This is how we do the calculations. So we can clearly identify that there's an additional tax being paid by her in the form of class 1 employer NICs and employee NICs, and also the corporation tax which is coming in. So it would be better for her not to incorporate her business and continue with the self-employment business in order to keep her taxes at a minimum level. This is how we do this part of the question. Now let's move on to the second part of it. Okay, this is a theory question. So in theory questions, people usually in taxation, they always try to focus on the numericals part and try to skip theory. But always, guys, theory is also very important for your tax exam. You will be tested for at least 15 to 20 marks on theory on the entire paper. If it's not 15, it'll at least be until 12 to 15 marks is definitely for sure. So try to remember, prepare the self-assessments, prepare any theory aspects and understand the exemptions. Just do not by heart the exemptions that are there. Try to understand them so you will be able to apply them better. Okay. So now let's see what the question is. Explain the tax relief that Tina could get on pension contribution of 10,000 per annum and whether her choice of scheme would impact this. Okay. She wants to make a pension contribution of 10,000. And what are the options she has? She has an option of contributing into the where she has an option of contributing into personal pension scheme or occupational pension scheme or occupational pension scheme. Okay, these are the two options that she has got. So now let's see the taxable benefit if Tina contributes to her occupational scheme. Okay, so what will happen if Tina contributes to her occupational scheme? Her remuneration will be reduced. So because occupational pension contributions to occupational pension scheme is a deductible benefit. So now her income that was earlier her income that was 30,000 would now become 20,000. Okay, so that is an option that we have got. So if the income reduces by 10,000, that means her taxation will also reduce. Correct? Because her employment income is only 20,000. So now on that 10,000, she's having a savings of 20% because usually she had to pay tax on 30,000 less PA. Now she'll be paying on 20,000 less PA. 20,000 less PA. So that 10,000 is being saved here. So because of that, she will make tax savings, and that is what we'll be writing here. Contributes to her pension scheme. We should write it like if Tina contributes 10,000 to her occupational pension scheme, then her employment income will reduce by 10,000, which would indicate which would further mean that she would be paying 20% of less tax, 20% of less tax on her income, on her on the on the contribution made. Okay. 10,000 to her occupational pension scheme, then her employment income will reduce by 10,000, which would further mean that she would be getting equivalent to, let's write it this way, because framing of the sentences for the opposite person to understand is equally important, which would further mean that she would be reducing her tax liability equivalent to 20% of 10,000. That is, there is a tax saving of 2,000 pounds, of 2,000. Okay, clear. Now we have identified what is that if contributes to her occupational pension scheme. Now let's see the taxable benefit if Tina contributes to her personal pension scheme. In personal pension scheme, we have something known as matching rule, which means if we pay 80% of the contribution that we want to make, the other 20% will be made by the government. So because of that, here if we see that she wants to make a contribution of 10,000, that means if she wants to make 10,000, it is sufficient for her to pay 8,000 because the rest 2,000 will be paid by the government. Always remember this point, very important. So because of this, if she's paying only 8,000 out of the total 10,000, that means here also she's getting a saving of 2,000. But here the additional thing that will happen is her basic rate band will increase from 37,700. But is that something useful for her? If we see in the previous question, she is someone, her employment income is falling within the basic rate band. So because of that, there is no tax benefit that is applicable for her because of the nil rate, because of the basic rate band increasing. So here the only benefit that she's getting is she has to pay only 8,000 instead of 10,000. So because of that, she's getting a 2,000 saving there. Over here also, occupational scheme also she's getting a saving of 2,000. Even if she contributes via personal pension scheme, she's getting a benefit of 2,000. So technically, she can choose any relief that she wants to. Is this clear, guys? Let's frame it in the same exact manner. For contribution into for contrib if decides to contribute into the personal pension scheme, then she will have to pay only 80% of the contribution amount of the contribution, while the rest 20% will be paid by the government. That means government, which means so if she wants to contribute, 10,000, she would be paying only 8,000 and the rest 2,000 would be paid by the government, and thus giving a savings of 2,000 pounds. Okay. Clear? So conclusion, but Tina's basic rate band will increase from 37,700, which is not beneficial for Tina as she is a basic rate taxpayer. She's a basic rate taxpayer. So she can decide to choose either of these options. And her savings would come up to 2,000 pounds. That's it, guys. This is all you have to write and you will get the marks. Okay. So for this, for writing about the occupational pension scheme, you will get 1 mark. For writing about this, you will be getting 1 mark. And for concluding in this way, you will be getting 1 mark over here. That is your total amount total 3 marks. That's it. You have it over there. And this is the last question relating to the first part of it. So we have completed both of these and we have completed our first question. For the other questions, watch the YouTube playlist channel of Being ACCA's tax playlist. Thank you guys. Have a good day.